again. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Vishali, a Marcom manager at Flightbase and this session's moderator. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all to this panel discussion that I have been personally looking forward to. Before I begin, I wanted to quickly check in with you to see if you're all having a good time and getting value out of the sessions. Please leave in your thoughts in the chat. Your feedback will help us curate the sessions in the future editions. And do let us know where you're joining in from and what brought you to this session. What are you excited about and what are you looking forward to here at this session? We are here today to discuss about drone deliveries, the most talked about subject in this industry. So I was recently reading a piece from McKinsey and Company, and it said that in early 2022, a year ago, more than 2,000 commercial drone deliveries were occurring every day worldwide. And that number has only grown since. That's incredible, right? So as the industry scales and moves beyond the test flight or POC stage, it has become increasingly important to leverage the power of a complete ecosystem of complementary technologies, such as the drone itself, the payload mechanism, the delivery stations, the software, and not to forget the operations and navigating through the regulatory landscape. And therefore, we've gathered our panel of experts today to discuss just that. So, without any further ado, let me start by welcoming our first panelist, Ian, founder and CEO of Zing, which provides businesses with customizable turnkey solutions that enable them to get started with drone delivery operations efficiently. Welcome, Ian. Could you please briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Zing is a drone delivery platform. We provide turnkey solutions to businesses that are looking to get started. Drone delivery is really picking up right now. As you mentioned, over 2,000 deliveries on average happening per day, and actually over 1 million commercial drone deliveries were completed last year. So we're really excited right now. Right now is like an inflection point for drone delivery. So really looking forward to this panel.
Thank you again. Let's just quickly watch a video from Zing. Thank you so much, Ian, again for the video. It looks great. I'll pick your brains soon. But meanwhile, let me introduce Evan, co-founder of A to Z Delivery, that is actually pushing the boundaries of automated delivery with a range of products, including drone hardware and winches. So please welcome Evan. Over to you for the introduction.
Great. Thanks for joining in, everyone. I'm excited for this panel. So we're A to Z. We manufacture, dream up, and build a wide range of drone delivery hardware. So we provide the technology to make all the stuff you're hearing about in all these exciting panels possible. So what you're going to see in the upcoming video is a showcase of some of our tech. So both the drone and the winch we've created and are currently out in the field doing drone deliveries.
Okay, so let's just quickly watch the video. That's such a brilliant video, Evan. We'll listen to more of your stories. Let me move on.
Or we'll see it again.
Yes. So thanks, Evan. Let's also welcome Ryan Walsh, founder and CEO of Valkyrie, to discuss their patented drone delivery station that has solved the last inch logistic problems. So, hello, Ryan. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Baishali. So I'm Ryan Walsh. She mentioned CEO and founder of Valkyrie. We create the other side of the equation. So secure receptacles that can both send and receive packages autonomously, loading the drone, receiving packages from the drone, and solving the issue of what happens on the receiving end if you're not there.
Okay, let's quickly watch a video of the Valkyrie drone station. Okay.
So everything you can see here, we're controlled through an app. It's very easy to interface with our system. As soon as it stops buffering.
Yes. Sorry again for that, Ryan. Just
No, it's quite all right. These things happen. But we are drone agnostic. We work with virtually any airframe. So we can deal with packages from winch deliveries, hover drops, landed drones. So we tend to be as modular and extensible as possible to really meet the demands of both the drone operator as well as what the customer is looking for.
I've got your video on my screen, if that might help present.
that'll be great. If you could share your screen, can you present it? Evan, can you just click on the present button? I will meanwhile just quickly check the network. I think maybe we can get back to it. Sorry, Ryan, for the inconvenience. We can move forward with it, and then maybe at the end, when you're talking about the delivery station, we can play that video once again. I would also like to, invite my colleague Achal. Achal directs and heads the business development team at Flightbase, and he's gonna join in today to talk about the importance of an enterprise-ready software platform for managing drone deliveries end to end. So, welcome, Achal. We can see the slides of video later if once the internet is not acting up. But then, thank you again for being here. Would you please quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. As Vasesh said, I am the director of business development. So I have a decade of experience working with drones. We have a specific platform called FlightZip, which enables drone delivery, and that is being used worldwide to automate drones for different use cases. And we're going to talk about more in details as we have this panel discussion. So really excited to be here. And yeah, hi, everybody on the panel.
Thank you, Achal. So before I begin, couple of housekeeping rules. In case you want to ask any questions to the panelists, please drop them in the chat section, and we should be able to, I should be able to pick up some questions from there and ask them to the panel. And finally, I would like to thank our sponsors, title sponsor DJI Enterprise and platinum sponsor Voltus Aerospace for supporting us in this journey. So let's jump into the session. And my first question is for Ian. Ian, what prompted you to develop a business model that integrates various technologies to provide businesses with a turnkey solution for drone deliveries? And why is it more important now than ever?
So great question. I think there's a few components of that. We got started with drone delivery back in 2018 under Part 107. we started to find like all of the intricacies and the pieces of technology that are needed for a complete drone delivery solution. There's really so many components that have to fit together perfectly in order for you to have a compliant and successful operation. So we were starting to do these demonstrations all around the United States, and through these demonstrations, getting like the regulatory approvals, both for Lance approvals and like 10741 approvals for controlled airspace and like class around Class B airports and things like that. So we really started to see like exactly what it takes to perform a successful operation by doing them. And we started finding different companies around the industry and building up strategic partnerships so that we could basically enable ourselves to perform these operations. And then we started getting inquiries from businesses saying that they wanted to start their own operations. And that's really even started to pick up now as people are starting to see all over the world, like we mentioned, 1 million deliveries completed last year commercially. Businesses are starting to see this and starting to wonder how they can integrate it. But from somebody outside of the drone industry, it's extremely complicated and complex to start up your own operation. So we saw an opportunity to basically provide all of these pieces from the best in class companies. Like we utilize the A to Z drone delivery system and the Valkyrie smart mailbox system to basically create a complete solution for somebody who's looking to get started with an operation. We also provide the pilots. So we have a network of 3,000 Part 107 pilots, and we would basically train them to perform drone deliveries for a specific location. So right now, there's a lot of people that are interested in drone delivery. They don't know the regulations, they don't know the technology, and we want to provide like an all-in-one, all-encompassing solution for them that they can use turnkey out of the box.
Right. Thanks, Ian. I think you highlighted a very important point. Bringing together all the pieces of the puzzle is also equally important. And a lot of people out there just do not know how to get started with drone delivery operations, yet they want to. And I think you've done it quite well. You've brought in together all the modular pieces. And to continue on that train of thought, I would like to ask Achal. So, could you explain why a modular approach, where bringing in all pieces together, is much preferable than a monolithic approach, and how does it reduce the time to market?
Sure, sure. So yeah, I to second thoughts from Ian, right? The way they approached it to start drone delivery service, choosing the right drone component, software. I mean, if you look at any industry, right? If you look at how rockets are being made, how automotive industry is like so reliable, popular, right? We drive cars and it doesn't fail, right? It starts whenever you press a button. It's all made of sub assemblies, right? Where you made in parts, different companies make lights, engines. You have similar engine models in different type of cars, and they are built on each platform. So when such complex technologies, be it cars or rockets, anything that you're making, each player is focusing on a particular each player is focusing on a particular layer, right? Where you are perfecting that layer, right? And you are making it scalable. You If you look at this industry, you could have a really reliable stable drone from a drone provider. You could have a delivery box like Ryan and team is making there, which could house and have all the connectivity and IoT components, delivery mechanisms that we saw from Ian, right? How it could help you have different kind of delivery mechanisms. It could be a 250 pounds kind of package, or it could be like a 2.5 pounds, right? It could be anything, and it could vary totally. If somebody has to do everything together in a monolith approach, it could be done, but that's a huge investment. It's a huge capital, right? And that increases the cost of the solution, the reliability factor, and then you have all the eggs in a single basket. So this is where modular approach has worked, and if you look at industry, that's how it is done to make any product, right? To make it really scalable, reliable.
Right. I think that's an excellent point, Achal. I would just wanted to want to check with all the panelists if anybody would like to layer on top of that. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting to see how a lot of these players who have taken the modular approach, have very quickly caught up to a lot of the monolithic players in terms of their capabilities. So when you look at the folks who are doing this monolith approach, namely, I guess, Amazon Prime and Wing, their capabilities are outrivaled in a lot of ways, at least on the technical side. You know, their advantage comes from their high integration and resources as a large company. But I suspect that there's a lot to be had by someone who's putting together the best in class of every component, rather than kind of spreading that labor amongst the various components.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, Ryan.
No, I'm going to back up what both of those guys said. So if you take that monolithic approach, and let's say there's a new development in any of the sub-assemblies, you're stuck and you have a very costly changeover modification to your system. It's picking one specific lane and you have to stay in it, and retrofitting is an insurmountable cost in a lot of ways. So being able to swap in the latest and greatest, whether it's, A to Z's newest winch, or, as different technologies evolve, it becomes very easy to integrate them into current existing networks.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question, which is for Evan. With a wide range of products that you have to offer, including the rapid delivery system, what distinguishes it from the standard packages? And do you believe that the delivery drones as well require special configurations?
It's a good question. I would have to say that the classic answer in these scenarios is it depends. I mean, there's a lot of applications to drone delivery. Oftentimes people immediately think of like residential package drone delivery. And I would say for that scenario, we have a great setup. That's sort of one of the original ideas that inspired delivering from altitude. It's an approach that we've seen a lot of folks follow us in, because landing a drone is just unworkable often from a consumer perception standpoint, from a consuming battery standpoint, from a logistical standpoint of having a place to deliver. So that, as sort of our core offering, has been one of the solid things we've stood behind. Hence, the winch is pretty fixed among our portfolio. It's sort of the core product powering the rest of all of our growth. And as far as different configurations, it's an interesting question, because we strive, one of our trickiest balances to strike is that between capability and versatility. Because the potential market is huge, but a lot of folks are going for these very niche applications. So having a product that can be catered and tuned to the specific use case that somebody needs allows us to enter markets that other people can't. That said, being in a unique position of being one of the leading winches, a lot of people turn to us first, and we need to be ready to configure our tech to whatever hits us. So we have seen some very interesting applications I never would have thought of. And it's very exciting to be able to, think through our portfolio and say, yeah, we have what it takes to do that. So I would say configuration really depends on what it is that you are trying to do, and who your partners are and what capabilities you have. So in terms of the possible space of delivery operations, we find ourselves ending towards the versatility side, because as a player in a newer market, there's a lot of room for us to break new ground. That said, we suspect as time goes on, we'll begin to specialize our products for these niche applications that require the absolute best in class as competition heats up in the space.
Thanks, Evan. I think that's a great point, and especially with regards to the different applications for drone deliveries. You're going to get to it in some time, but we understand that it's going to be very important to define it based on the use case and not just generalize it. So yes. Moving on to Ryan. Ryan, many organizations are attempting store-to-door deliveries. What do you believe the major challenge would be, and why would hub-to-hub deliveries, like having a delivery station instead, is kind of the way to go for scaling operations? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. So if you look at even last mile delivery now, one of the biggest problems is theft. Weather damage is also an issue, especially when you're not under a covered porch. So not having the package secured is definitely something that would be a major cost driver and concerning. Drones are really great at getting the package from point A to point B efficiently and cost effectively, but they don't actually solve a lot of the cost drivers of last mile, which is failed delivery attempts and theft and damage. And so if you think about when people are home to be able to receive a package, you're going to have a bottleneck, right, before work, after work, and it's going to create a lot of problems for the delivery companies as they start scaling. So being able to schedule so those deliveries occur throughout the day and not having to have somebody be there, because drone delivery is effectively a convenience. It's not supposed to be something that is taking time out of your day. It should be something that just occurs while you're there. You come home, your package is there. It's secured in a Valkyrie landing station, whether one of our large lockers or one of our smaller single-family home mailboxes. And so it's really important that we have an ability to mitigate some of those problems. But you'll see here in this video, and thank you for playing this, Vishali. It's very quick, very easy, no different than using any other parcel locker from a user point of view. And it also provides a full chain of custody. So if you're delivering something sensitive, if you're trying to mitigate insurance claims, if you're trying to, deliver medication, all of that chain of custody is really important in making sure it only gets to the right people and not just anybody. So this, as you see, he takes his notification, goes and presses a button on his phone, and locker pops open. It couldn't be easier for everybody.
All right. Thanks again, Ryan, for sharing this. I'll just quickly pause this conversation. So my next question is going to be for Achal. Achal, going back to that McKinsey article that I read initially, it says that for drone deliveries to truly become cost competitive will require technology and regulations to advance sufficiently for a single operator to manage as many as 20 drones in a densely used airspace. So these advances would require autonomous drone flights in which drones fly with limited human intervention, and UTMs and sense and avoid solutions. But businesses today are conducting deliveries with standard mission planner and QGCS applications. What do you think? And a specialized software would be required, and will that be enough for to conduct drone operations, delivery operations?
Right, right. So I think the underlying statement there is how do we scale, right? We're talking about what kind of technology do we need that is safe, reliable, scalable, right? Using right now standard software that come with a drone is it could be very similar to like calling the nearby restaurant to deliver a pizza, right? But today, if you want to order food, you might use DoorDash. You want to order a laptop, you'll use Amazon, right? Or go to a Best Buy website, Walmart website. And similarly, there are a lot of things when you actually look at the logistic world, right? Supply chain, the way it works for a pizza to a laptop is very different. And then comes the perspective of people that is getting involved when it scales, right? You cannot have it without the cloud infrastructure. All these companies that we look at is basically operating through the cloud. So as we scale, we need a platform where all these stakeholders, personas could actually come under one umbrella, one platform, where you have somebody is ordering, somebody who is managing drone operations, somebody who is sending the package. That could be a medicine center, a hospital, or it could be a FMCG kind of a store for a delivery. And you need these many stakeholders to be there. So when we talk about all of this, you need a platform to make it happen. You need cloud technology, right, where everything is connected to a single platform. You're able to track deliveries. You're able to have integrations in the airspace that's gonna make it safe and reliable, where you have all the UTM, sense and avoid, and everything together. All of this is not possible with the standard softwares, where you cannot have integrations with even parachutes to UTM, sense and avoid, all the things that we need to send the data to the authorities. So far, it was possible where we were just doing some basic POC pilots or small projects But to make it like a widespread and a total reality where it becomes like, are we talking about automotive industry, right? Where cars are really normal or phones are really normal these days, right? There's no new thing about it. You would need that kind of technology to happen. So like these are the pointers where which would help us get there, and we need a platform, a tech platform to enable that. And it's not just the software, it would require a lot of different hardwares to make drones really reliable. Like I spoke about parachutes or sense and avoid, collision avoidance, that kind of technology.
Right. Thanks, Achal. That makes a lot of sense. So I missed out your video. So let me just try sharing that to give people a glimpse of the FlightZip platform.
Sure. So while you're doing that, FlightZip has been designed with that vision where since we have been working on a platform, approach. We created workflows, looked at the logistic world where how you have different stakeholders, and created apps on that platform where this would allow you to get started in that domain where you have different apps for your receivers, operators, dispatchers. So once the video is played, we'll see a brief about that. But this is what we are looking at, and this is again the next step. This may not be the end step. The platform could be leveraged to create dedicated apps. So we envision that people would modify it, people would add integrations to make it look like more Amazon or DoorDash or whatever your use case is, all right, for that particular kind of scenario.
Okay.
Thank you, Vaishali. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, that looks great. So, moving on to the next question, which is kind of open to all panelists here. And so, while it is true that drone deliveries have potential cost and sustainability benefits, there are two known attributes that will undoubtedly determine the success of drone deliveries: regulations and public perception. So, what regulatory changes are going to be required to make drone deliveries more feasible and accessible? Would anybody like to talk about that?
I can start on this one. So for the existing regulations, there's basically two existing pathways. So one is Part 107 and the other is Part 135. Part 107, of course, has its limitations, such as you have to fly within visual line of sight and you can't fly over people. So the current pilot projects around the United States are kind of operating within that restriction. The thing about Part 107 drone delivery is that according to the FAA, you're not able to get a BVLOS waiver specifically for drone delivery operations. They want people to go down this Part 135 air carrier route, and that requires the drone to get type certified, and it's a long and arduous process. However, in the BVLOS ARC, they have proposed a new potential way of doing things, which is to basically have risk requirements for the drone that's operating that you have to operate within, and then having the pilot who's operating it get a new certificate from the FAA. It's going to be called the Part 108 certificate, which is basically the autonomous drone operator and possibly drone delivery operator. So the FAA is already kind of setting the stage for fully autonomous and beyond visual line of sight drone delivery. A lot of the industry has been asking them to get this set up for a couple of years now, and I think that we're going to see an NPRM or Notice of Proposed Rulemaking possibly by the end of this year. And once that's in place, we'll have the stage set for a final rulemaking on beyond visual line of sight operations. And once that final rulemaking is in effect, drone delivery might be a lot more commonplace here in the US, especially BVLOS use cases. So, in terms of regulations, I think the FAA is listening to the industry and they're basically setting the stage for these beyond visual line of sight operations to happen in the near term future, within I would say 2 years, probably maximum. So that's what I'm currently seeing out there in the regulatory environment.
Great point, Ian. Would anybody like to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the discussion, especially outside of the industry, is around the laws that will, BV loss is a huge thing for most drone delivery applications, because if you're going less than a mile, why bother? Is a question a lot of people ask. But what we found is a lot of people are fine with that. If there are certain applications that the general public is talking less about, a lot of these ship to shore applications, internal logistics applications, situations where you're not trying to haul it a mile. If you got a busy factory floor and you need to move tools and goods around to get expensive machinery up and running, or if you just need to get something to a boat that's you can see the boat, you just don't want to hop in a speedboat and jet someone over there. You want some packages or documents or bunker samples there in 3 minutes. And there are people right now who have applications for which the current technology and the current legislation of even 107 is economically viable. So I think it is those use cases where the technology in terms of automation is really going to be sort of tested and explored and exercised, even while the laws are still brewing for these bigger applications. So we are not sitting around with all of our tech waiting for the legislative doors to open. We are out there finding these applications where there is value to be had with what is allowed to do. Anyone with a 107 can get out and get going. So Ian, you're absolutely right. We are paying a lot of attention to these BV loss stuff, but we are also looking at what can we do right here, right now. And the answer is quite a bit if you're clever.
Yes, that actually makes sense, is to make use of what is already there, and then scale operations after building a lot of safety cases and doing a lot of POCs and demos, and making it viable before moving on to BVLOS, for instance. Achal, Ryan, would any of you share your thoughts?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
go
Sure.
ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I think the recent bill that was introduced about 2 weeks ago from Senator Warner and Senator Thune is getting a lot of great, both inside and outside the industry, attention, and that should really speed things up. That will turn into not having to require necessarily a Part 108, but just having to conduct a risk assessment for beyond visual line of sight, and that's really changing from what the path looks like in a very positive way. As Evan was mentioning, you got to get a little bit clever, but there are several use cases to commercialize currently, but about 99% of the market is still closed off. So when that opens up, I mean, that's really when things start getting quite crazy in the drone industry.
Achal, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah. Yeah, reflecting the same thoughts, what Ian and Ryan said there. We are a data driven world, right? So this is a good part where using the current regulatory frameworks, we have already started a lot of POCs, pilots. If you could scale in between and show these are really reliable, where even when we're doing a mile delivery, right, it's fully automated. It has all the stakeholders which need to be there. So if we start building that ecosystem right now at a small scale, that data could be used to show that hey, this is very solid, this is very that bulletproof, right? And now we can scale it to even longer places. We can do beam loss and everything. So whatever we have today, we can leverage that to create that kind of data demonstrations and have enough proof that this technology is right now really ready to scale. And as regulatory frameworks are being made in terms of Part 108 and everything, it would be time to scale there and have these operations actually being deployed on a larger scale.
Thanks, Achal. I think I'll move on to the next question. So, in terms of public perception, while many early adopters see drone deliveries favorably, there are a lot of concerns about privacy and safety that comes with flights over people. So, how do you see that perception evolving in the coming years as drone deliveries become more common? And what technological or cultural changes would be required to do so? Ian, Evan, Ryan, anybody would
Oh,
like to?
I can jump in with some thoughts. Um, I think there's on the legal side, I think there's a certain inevitability. We see progress happening, the doors will open. I think honestly, I have less certainty around public perception because it is something that a larger group is controlling. The public perception is a very chaotic system, and I think that that initial reaction is going to be subject to the initial conditions very sensitively of how things kind of roll out. Like there is not enough volume of drone delivery for any operation to actually be stifled by public concern. Only once these legal doors open will there be enough drones in the sky for the public to actually start exerting their influence. And I think that's going to be a much more powerful one than the legal one. So I think if things go out and there's a few like very rosy stories and things are able to get quiet and the laws go in such a way that there's respect for the consumer, I think there's a good chance people will see the value and things, concern will ease in a favorable direction for the industry. But I think there is a very real chance that, a few ugly incidents early on and, things being noisy and targeting maybe less useful use cases that aren't delivering the value that the inconvenience provides. If the general, zeitgeist of drone delivery sort of tips it early on in an unfavorable direction, I think that could cascade to a pretty disastrous role for the industry. Take supersonic jets was an incredibly promising technology, offered very, very real value, and it was very loud and it was somewhat dangerous, and it just does not exist at all today. We have perfectly valid technological and economic use cases for it, but public perception killed it. So I think we all have a great responsibility to be very cautious and cognizant of how we roll this stuff out, because it's not the laws that are going to kill us. The laws are going to open the doors for public perception to kill us if we're too eager and we're not thinking about the broader societal impacts of the things that we're building. And here at A to Z, we are really watching that closely in the tech we build, in the operations we choose to perceive. So this is one that is much more on my mind than the legal one, even though the time horizon is a little less pressing.
That's actually a great point. I think Ian, you wanted to share something, so please go ahead.
Well, I think Evan had some really great points there, and I think that the main hurdle to get in the door with some of these communities is going to be kind of calming their fears. And people are afraid of what they're not familiar with. So a lot of companies like Wing and Amazon, I know that they get really involved in a community prior to starting an operation, and making that community aware of the drone, maybe setting up a booth, showing them what the drone looks like and everything like that. As people start to become more familiar with these kind of operations, there's going to be less of that kind of like wall of fear around integrating this into a community. And on the noise side, like technology, propeller technology is improving. I've seen drones now that, I mean, the sound of it is more like a low hum than like a more of like a hive of bees kind of sound. It's the propeller technology is really going to be key to making it a non-intrusive aspect for a community. So I really am excited about the kind of like the technology enhancements. And also I think it's extremely important that before integrating drone delivery into a community, that we go out there and we show the community what exactly we're doing, and we educate them so that they're familiar with the operation, and that will really help to calm their fears before something like this gets started. Last thing would probably be the privacy piece. At Zing, we have like a no SD card policy, and anyone who asks about it in the community, we just say we only use the camera for navigation purposes. We're not filming anything or capturing anything to the cloud in terms of footage.
I think that's quite a valid point, Ian. Ryan, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I want to shout out Transport Canada. I've been participating in their Canadac board, and this is a very real concern for them, at how the public perceives drone technology, because as Evan said, it is really a critical factor in this. And both from our experience and what I'm learning from other people's experience in that is, to Ian's point, it's all about education. Everybody's concerned a drone is taking all this personal private information, they're storing it somewhere, and in reality, most of them aren't, right? I mean, that's a very small segment of mostly law enforcement that uses them for that, not on the delivery side. And so having that engagement and that education more than anything, where people get to understand, like, this is going to provide you convenience, it's going to provide you faster delivery, more cost effectively, and nobody is looking at your house or in your windows or anything like that. And it tends to placate a lot of those fears people have, because just like Ian said, they don't understand what they don't know. And so getting them engaged, bringing them into the conversation, and really making their voices heard is a huge step in this.
Yes, I totally agree, Ryan. I think it's important for all of us to, be listeners, and also, pass on this message, build the awareness that's going to be required to scale delivery operations. So I think we are almost at the end of the panel conversation. Before I end, I just have this one closing question, which is, based on your experience working with customers across the globe, where, as in which markets or regions do you envision drone delivery scaling, and why? Will it just be like for medical deliveries, retail, or simply in areas where the terrain prohibits accessibility? Would anybody like to share on that?
So drones have use cases that are rural, suburban, and urban. So I mean, drones are going to be everywhere. Drone delivery specifically is going to be everywhere. And just based on how much kind of market penetration there is now versus how much there could be, like, this is a market that's nascent. It's just starting up, and there's basically the entire globe is anywhere there's people who need deliveries. Drone delivery is going to become, as the costs continue to go down and automation continues to go up, drone deliveries are going to become the more convenient, less costly, and more eco-friendly option. So I think the potential here is really huge.
Evan, Ryan, Achal?
Yeah, I think with those three prompts that you kind of led us with are exactly it. And a place where there's a confluence between those three are going to be among the early spaces to see widespread adoption. So where the legal barriers are low, where the value is high, and where the alternatives are weak. So somewhere where there's not a lot of other infrastructure, where there are more pressing use cases, mainly medical is a big one, and where the laws are not so restrictive. So I would say basically medical deliveries in developing countries that have a high need and fewer legal barriers is, I think, where these larger scale autonomous operations that become integrated into society are going to be seen sooner. Although, as Ian said, once things are proven in these places, people will see, oh, it's working great for them, it can work great for us. Legal barriers go down, public perception goes down, and as the tech hardens, the benefits it can deliver start to look sharper in comparison to the alternatives. So I think it'll be a flow from the low resistance areas to the high resistance areas. Resistance being legal, legislative, and by alternative.
Right.
Yeah, just moving on to the similar thought, I would divide that into maybe like medical public health, where you could have like vaccines, medicine delivered, going up to even lab samples. You could get the report digitally, but you have to send the samples, right? And in a lot of the countries, you do not have the right diagnostic labs and everything available in that area. And today, the means is to maybe send through a vehicle which is delivering, or sending it through an actual aircraft. It's not possible because the scheduled, you might, the next flight will be tomorrow to send. So maybe that is where long range deliveries would come, and people have experimented with organ delivery. I can see that there would be a future for that, but because it's very time critical. So maybe in public health, these are the domains. Then I see industrial, that shore to ship or ship to shore kind of delivery, right? Where it is really expensive to dock a ship, or it's not possible. You'd have to send speedboat there, and that entire area is industrial, right? There are a lot of containers and everything. There's even really heavy equipments, which is dangerous anyway, right? So the acceptance would be quite high. And then of course of the urban use cases of FMCG delivering a lot of stuff in cities and everything would come. So I would take the same part and maybe divide that into these three things, where wherever these kind of use case have much more value, this is how it could be adopted around the globe.
Yeah, I would back all of that up. And to Evan's point, the legislative ends up being a very big factor. India's airspace was closed for quite some time until Prime Minister Modi opened up, and now we have more drone deliveries happening in India than in most places around the world. So I do think a lot of these factors are coming together, but that's probably one of the biggest ones. So I'm totally behind Evan on that.
Thanks again, everyone, for sharing your thoughts on this. So we are already over time, and I would have to close this panel conversation. It was a very interesting one. Thank you again, Evan, Ian, Ryan, and Achal. They are all tongue twisters, the names put together. But thank you again, everyone, for spending the time today and sharing your insights with the audience. For all the audience joining in and listening to us, thank you for tuning in. And please spread the love. Go to the Wall of Love tab and share your feedback about this session and all the other sessions that we are hosting at NestGen. Your feedback would mean a lot and help us curate the upcoming sessions and editions. So thank you once again for joining in. I wish you all have a great day, and see you in some other session at NestGen. Thank you again, and thank you again, speakers. Have a great day.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
everybody. Have a good one. Bye.